In this video, we'll continue our conversation about intervals, and we'll specifically focus in on major and minor seconds and thirds. So we'll talk about minor seconds, minor thirds, major thirds. Now, before when we were just doing the numbers, we didn't need a staff, but now we're going to need a staff, and we're going to start needing to take into account where these actual notes fall on a piano. I'm going to start with a treble clef. And we'll start by just talking about seconds. If I have a note that was to go from this line, which is G, to this space, which is A, it's a second. But here's the tricky thing. This is also a second, G flat to A. And so is this, G flat to A sharp. And so is this, G to A flat. So you can see, I can keep going, but there are a whole bunch of different types of seconds. All of these are technically seconds because they all are going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. But we need to differentiate. And the only two types of seconds we really need to worry about for the purpose of any kind of introductory theory class until you get into something really advanced would be either a major second or a minor second. And here's how it works on an actual piano keyboard. Think about it like this. If you were to go from one key to the next key, we could call that a half step, right? And a half step is just like a minor second. Now, there's only one thing that's a little bit more specific between a half step and a minor second, which is that in order to be a minor second, it also has to be going from one letter to another letter. Remember how we talked about in the staff, we're going from a G something to an A something. We have to do the same thing here. Now, what would be an example of that? Well, if I were to go from this note to this note, I would have to say I'm going from a D to an E flat. That would be a minor second because I'm going from one note to the next note, a half step away, and I'm using one letter name, which is a D, and another letter name, which is an E something. But if I were to say D to D sharp, that technically would no longer be a minor second because here's what it looks like on the staff. D and D sharp, it looks like they're the same note. Not exactly the same note, but the same letter, right? So D to D sharp is technically not a second at all. It's actually a type of unison, and I don't want to get into what it is because I don't want to confuse you. But just know that this is not a second. In order to call this a second, it has to be a D to an E flat. And we call this a minor second, and we abbreviate it with a lowercase m, 2. Very important that we use a lowercase m. You'll see why in a second. But the lowercase m tells us that it's a minor second. Let's try a couple other ones, just looking for minor seconds. Suppose we're going to start with G. What is a minor second down from G? Well, a minor second down from G should land us on this note. And it's important that since we're saying a minor second, it has to be a letter name away. We can't call it a G to a G flat. That's the same letter. We have to call it a G to an F sharp. How about if we wanted to go a minor second up from this note? Well, if this is E, this one's a pretty easy one. E up a half step would be an F. E to F is a minor second. Let's do one that's actually challenging and then we'll move on. This is kind of our trickier question. What if I go to this note and I want to go up a minor second? Well, first of all, you have to know what I'm calling this note because the answer changes if I call this a D sharp or an E flat, right? Let's suppose I'm calling this note an E flat. And this is a really confusing one. That's why I chose it as an example. I'm going to go from an E flat up a minor second would get us to this note. The problem is I can't call that an E. Why? Because I'm already using an E something. I have to use the next note name. So in order to call it the next note name, it would have to be something on this F space. And the answer is, it's an F flat. Remember, F doesn't have a black key next to it. So F flat is the enharmonic equivalent of E. A half step up from E flat, and specifically a minor second up from E flat, is an F flat. Okay, what if I said a major second? Well, a major second is the equivalent of a whole step, right? So instead of going from D to this, I would skip that one and go from D all the way up to E. That's a major second. Here's another one. A major second up from E would land me on this note. Now because it's a second, I have to make sure it's a different letter name. I can't call this note a G flat. Look what that would look like. I'm gonna make a new staff over here, new clef rather. I would say I'm starting at E, here's my E. What happens if I call this an E to a G flat? Well, E, F, G, that's a third of some kind. Again, we don't need to worry about what it is, but just know that's not a second. E to F sharp would be the second. E, oops, sorry, here we go. E to F sharp. That's our major second. And while we're here, I'm going to write out my major second, and I'm going to abbreviate that with a capital M2. That's why it's important to know if we're doing the minor second, we use a lowercase m, major second, capital M. Let's try another one. What if I wanted to go a major second up from C sharp? A major second would cause me to skip this one and go right here. And remember, since I'm calling this C something, I have to call this one a D something. So C sharp, up a major second, well that's going to get me to D sharp. Okay, this time I'm going to try one on the staff. How about this? What would be a major second down from this note? Now we're going down this time. Well, there's my B flat. Now, here's something you could do since I'm doing this on the staff. I know it's going down a second, and I could just put my note head here and worry later about am I going to add a sharp or a flat or keep it natural. Well, I'm going from a B flat down a major second would get me here to an A flat. All right, so far we have a list and it looks something like this. A minor second is like a half step. A major second is like a whole step. Now we're going to add minor thirds and major thirds. Minor third and major third. And these go in order. So it's really not that hard. As long as you understand how to find these, you can use them as building blocks to get to your thirds. A minor third rather, is one bigger than a whole step. So a minor third you can think of as like a whole step plus a half step. Let's try some minor thirds. Let's start with C. A whole step plus a half step, right? I went to a whole step because I skipped this one. And I'm going to a half step. So that is a minor third. Now I'm talking about a third, so I have to be 3 letter names apart. C, D, E. That's 3 letter names. I have to call this an E something. I'm going to call it an E flat. Not a D sharp, but an E flat. How about if I wanted to go a minor third down from A? There's my whole step, right? Skipping this one, whole step, plus a half step. A, G, F. I have to call this note an F something. So it's an A to an F sharp. That's my minor third. Let's try one on the staff. And let's switch to a bass clef. What if I have this note? I'm trying to think of a harder one than what I was going to do. Let's do this. And I want to go up by a minor third. Well, I can put my note head down first. I know it's going to be a third up. So there's 1, 2, 3. Note head should be something on the F line. Looking at my keyboard, here's my, let me move this down a little bit. Here's my D sharp. That's my first note over here, D sharp. Going up a whole step plus a half step gets me to F sharp. That's a minor third. Last one is a major third. It's a whole step plus a whole step. That's one way you could think about it, but you could also think of it as just, look, here's a minor second as a half step, right? A major second is one bigger than that. A minor third is one bigger than that. And a major third is one bigger than that. All of these increase. So a major third, again, they should be a third apart on the staff. In other words, it's 3 letter names apart. And you could think of it like 2 whole steps. So if I were to start with an E, there's 1 whole step. There's my second whole step. Is it a G sharp or an A flat? Well, E, F, G. It has to be a G something, G sharp. Let's do one more. Let's go from B flat and let's go down a major third. There's my first whole step. There's my second whole step. That's a major third. Is it G flat or F sharp? Well, B flat, it's a B something, A something, G something. It has to be a G something. B flat to G flat. There's a major third. Let's try this. I'm going to give you one question to answer in the comments, just to do a self-check. If you answer this, I will do my best to let you know if you get this correct. What would a minor third below A flat be? What is a minor third below A flat? Go ahead and put that in the comments, and I will go ahead and check and let you know if you get that right. If you found that video helpful, please click the subscribe button below to find more videos just like it.